All right, well, it's Friday, and we still don't know who the president's going to be come January, but all signs are pointing, Yo-Yo and Vanessa, to Joe Biden being the president, Kamala Harris being the vice president of the United States. Joe Biden has pulled ahead in Georgia. The last time a Democrat won Georgia, 1992, Bill Clinton.
Wow, Bill Clinton?
Yeah, he has pulled ahead overnight in Pennsylvania. The votes that still need to be counted in Pennsylvania, all from the Bucks County or the Philadelphia area, mostly all leaning Biden Democrat. Trump is going to sue. If Biden is declared the winner of Pennsylvania, Biden is the president of the United States. If Biden continues to hold his lead in Arizona and Nevada, he will be the president of the United States. If he wins Georgia and either Arizona or Nevada or Pennsylvania, or he is the president of the United States, there's so many different ways he ends up being the president of the United States, and he's in the lead in all of these states at the moment. And the only thing Trump can do is ask for a recount. Maybe I would be a little worried on a recount if Biden wins any state less than 10,000 people, because you never know, okay? Right. But I think at around 10,000 people, if the spread in Pennsylvania is 10,000 plus, the spread in Arizona and Nevada is 10,000 plus, the spread in Georgia is 10,000 plus, there's no way that they've made an error counting 10,000 ballots.
Right.
No freaking way. So unless all of these states come down to like 50 or 100 votes, Biden's the president. And right now, all indications are that Biden is going to win Pennsylvania by more than 10,000. He's ahead in Nevada and Arizona by more than 10,000. It's much closer in Georgia, but they don't need Georgia right now if Nevada, Arizona, and certainly Pennsylvania holds up. We'll see what happens. Biden said he is going to address the nation tonight. However, he tampered down expectations by saying if there's something to talk about tonight, I'll talk about it. If not, I'm going to wait till all the votes are counted the next day. He continued, things are happening. They're boding well for the base that has been supporting me, but we'll see. We will see.
This is a dream.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody in Georgia, you know who they're thanking for the close race? Stacey Abrams. That is correct.
Yes, I've been posting about her because of this. Yeah,
she ran unsuccessfully for governor. And the allegations that she made, which are probably true, I don't know enough about the internal workings of Georgia state politics, but from what I read was that there was a lot of voter suppression especially in the Black and minority communities. And as a result, she lost the governorship in 2018 by about 1.5%. And what she said is the best way to beat voter suppression is get as many people registered and out to vote. So even if they suppress some of those votes, we just overwhelm them with more and more votes. And you know what she did in Georgia between 2018 and 2020? Her organization, which is called the New Georgia Project, it was funded to combat voter suppression. And what they did in Georgia was they were able to register 100,000 people, presumably mostly Democrats, to vote in this election that were otherwise would not have voted. And but for this voter drive by Stacey Abrams and her fabulous organization, Biden would not have even been close in Georgia. She was considered even as a potential running mate. I am sure she will also be considered for something in the cabinet, I would presume, because Biden is definitely going to have to reward her with something. So we will see what happens there. But everybody, go ahead.
I heard that she raised $32 million and got about 800,000 people, voters, to register.
In Georgia, it was 100,000 just in the state of Georgia. Maybe 800,000 nationwide. But in the state of Georgia, I read it was 100,000 people that came out to vote, presumably voted Democrat because of Stacey Abrams. And yes, Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's just that it's important. I think it's important for parties to collaborate, right? Even though, of course, when she starts this initiative, it's for her sake also. But if she hadn't gone ahead and created this notion just to raise more awareness and for people to understand where the Democratic Party is coming from, who knows where Georgia would have been?
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's very interesting who voted for whom and where. Kind of the irony of Trump's loss or potential loss of his presidency is that he lost Michigan, which he won in 2016, and Joe Biden needed Michigan to ultimately, if he prevails in Arizona and Pennsylvania, he definitely needed Michigan to also prevail. Michigan has already been called for Joe Biden, but the irony of Joe Biden winning in Michigan is that it is emerging that the Muslim community in Michigan, people estimate, consisted of approximately 81,000 votes, all mostly voted for Joe Biden. The Muslim community makes up 270,000 people in the state of Michigan, nearly 2.75% of the population. And what's the irony there is that Trump said he was going to make America great again, and he felt that by making a Muslim ban and by scapegoating every person in this religion as being a bad person, what he did ultimately was he thought that was a winning argument. But what happened was he lost the state of Michigan. And as it turns out, it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, assuming Biden wins Pennsylvania, that propels Biden to the presidency. Perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps if there was no Muslim ban, there was no hysteria by Trump towards Muslim people in general, he didn't scapegoat every person of the Muslim religion as a bad human being, maybe Michigan would have turned out different because it was very, very close. Very, very close.
If he was more of a human, it could have been something that worked in his favor. So.
Yeah. What's also interesting is that Asian Americans voted primarily for Joe Biden. The Los Angeles Times editor Sewell Chan tweeted, "Looks like Asian Americans' small but fast-growing share of the electorate broke about 70% for Biden, continuing a shift that began in the 1990s. And as a matter of fact, now Asian Americans are more Democratic than Latinos." Latinos, and Vanessa, you could probably tell us more than anybody, it's wrong to just lump Latinos as Latinos. Because depending on where you are from, Latin America is huge. It's Central America, it's South America, parts of the Caribbean. Depending on where you're from and what your history of your area is politically will depend a lot on where you lean. Most people would think that because of what Trump was doing with the Hondurans and the Nicaraguans and calling Mexicans rapists and, preventing Hondurans and Guatemalans and Nicaraguans from applying for asylum and the family separations of the Central Americans, that all the Latinos would have voted for Joe Biden. But in fact, Joe Biden lost two huge states, Florida and Texas, because the Latino vote broke for Trump.
It's wild.
And the presumption was that the Latino vote would have broken for Biden. Broke meaning they voted for Trump over Biden. Now, in Arizona, Latinos have a different experience because they have Sheriff Joe there, Arpaio, who became infamous for severe immigration enforcements. But in Miami, for example, Miami's made up of Cubans and Venezuelans, a lot of Latinos there. And they come from a history and a government of communism and socialism. And as soon as they hear communists and socialists, they ran from that. They don't want to vote for that here in America. It's very interesting that, if there was an error by the Democrats, that they presumed that Latinos would automatically vote for them, and they didn't. And Vanessa, you're obviously Latina. You're in the community. I'm sure you have a lot to say on this.
I've seen a lot of different things, and I've heard a lot of different things from a lot of Latinos. And something that came up a lot was, policy over personality is what a lot of of some of the Latinos that have voted Trump, which boggles my mind, right? Because there's a lot of first generation Latinos, and then there's immigrant Latinos like myself that feel very strongly about immigration and policy. And it's just like blows my mind how even for first generation, it's like, you know, your parents were immigrants and now we're supporting, no matter if you're first generation and now you're making a decent living, right? Because that's another thing too. There's plenty of Latinos that have done very well things for themselves and want to protect their money, I guess. Like that's a lot of the different excuses that they're using, but I just don't find any justifiable reason to vote for Trump. That's my personal opinion, but like we see throughout the map, it depends on location, upbringing, community.
Donald Trump,
and it's been really intense to be Latina at this time, to be honest.
Donald Trump and the Republicans spent an enormous amount of money on Spanish radio and Spanish television in Southern Florida and Texas, painting Joe Biden as a socialist, saying he's a socialist. Wow. He's going to take your money. You know, and people are a lot of people there are first generation or immigrated, escaped communism in Cuba, escaped socialism in Venezuela. They don't want to go back to that, especially now when they're being successful in America and they're painting Biden as being a socialist. And I think personally, the reason why the Democrats, I'll give you my opinion, the reason why the Democrats do not right now have a majority in the Senate, they may if they win both Senate races in Georgia, and the reason why this race was as close as it really shouldn't have been, was for one reason. It was because Trump was successful in painting Joe Biden, who is in essence a moderate. He's a centrist. They were successful in painting Joe Biden as being very progressive, very left, socialist. Biden's going to defund police. Defund police scares a lot of people, even in minority communities, because they say, how do you have no police? It'll be anarchy. Yeah. And I think the Democrats, and certainly in middle class communities, I think the Democrats missed an opportunity there just because they were promoting the wrong words, in my opinion. Okay? I don't think there's many people who feel there should be no police. I mean, there are people out there who absolutely say no police.
No, that's crazy.
That's crazy. But when you hear the word defund police, defund police to people means no police, zero police. And the Democrats and certainly the progressives, they used very bad language that was used against them to scare people, to paint Joe Biden as being very progressive, very left, socialist, communist, when he's really a centrist. Mm-hmm. He's really a centrist. And maybe instead of, and I've been saying this for 6-9 months now, maybe instead of saying defund police, maybe it should have been, let's figure out, how to reform police. Let's figure out how to police without stereotyping, without profiling. Let's try to make people feel secure next to a policeman. It's about training. It's about changing the way that police even look. I mean, police walking around with body armor, huge hats, and machine guns scares the hell out of everybody. And it's their training. They have to train better. They have to get into the community more. They have to be able to have the community trust them. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. It takes an enormous effort, enormous funding. Police are trained less than barbers in New York. That's crazy.
Right.
Okay, wow. We've said that a million times. Police get 600 hours of training. Barbers get 1,000. Why can't we train police to be effective police officers and at the same time train them to recognize their biases? Train them to recognize that people feel that they're not being treated fairly, and train them in a new way. I don't know what the new way is, but there are experts out there who can do it.
That
can make those significant changes. And by the way, in any organization, whether it's a law firm, it's a Bradshaw Live, it's anything, okay? The store, where you may work. if an organization from the top down decides we are going to change and makes an effort to do it by concentrating for the next 90 days, for the next 180 days, for the next year, every day we're going to meet and we're going to discuss and we're going to implement and we're going to put in operations that are going to change very slowly, because nothing happens overnight, very slowly how we do things. Whatever it is, police, provide legal services, do a show, whatever it is, supermarket, doesn't matter. That's what effective management is. And if you put your mind and your money and get experts to figure out how to do it, it's really reform police. And I don't think anyone could be mad about reform police.
Absolutely not.
But when you say defund police, that is why the election was as close as it was. Absolutely, because that's what they did. That's what the Republicans did.
And Brad, I do like that you said, people shouldn't really just, when you hear Latinos, like just throw all of them in one group, because my friends, I have a lot of friends that are either Dominican, Puerto Rican, and actually one of my Puerto Rican friends, he had posted a picture saying it was the Florida poll, and it was showing the Cuban count was 23% for Biden and 71% for Trump, and Puerto Rican count was 66% for Biden and 23% for Trump. So like when you say that, it's not like the whole Latino community.
Yeah.
I like that you had said that, because you have to understand that there are different countries and within that Latino community.
And by the way, it's different cultures. I mean, Vanessa will be the first one to tell you. Okay, it's different.
Even there's a lot more conservative Catholics as well. Like there's people. It's all so different. So even me being from the Caribbean, like the things that I'm concerned about. Like Cuba's in the Caribbean too, and like I didn't want to name any names, but yes, there's a lot of Cubans out there that have been voting Trump, and we can't just toss. Latino is huge, like we were saying, South America, Central America, like the Caribbean. It's just so many different opinions because it's so many different cultures, and then here migrated into the U.S. We're in different places, still experiencing different cultures, different lifestyles, and different upbringings for ourselves as Latinos, different concerns. Latinos closer to the borders have different experiences than someone like myself in New Jersey, East. Like, it makes a huge difference. And when we're just tossed into a huge pool, it gets really sticky.
It gets dirty and messy.
You're right. And I think that was also probably the defund police and painting Biden as socialist. And what you and Vanessa have just talked about, where you lump every Latino as the same and you assume that they're going to vote Democrat because Trump is saying Mexicans are rapists, and but a Cuban doesn't look at himself or herself as a Mexican. Cuban says, I never heard Trump say Cubans are rapists. That's not me. All right. So, to lump everybody together, it was a huge mistake.
And it makes sense because most of them are in Florida.
That's right.
So
that's right. Had the Latino vote, and you would have thought the Latino vote, because they're right there on the border with Mexico.
I would have thought it too. Right. But
the Latino vote in Texas cost Biden Texas. The Democrats could win Texas if they had the Latino vote. And they took it for granted.
Yeah.
They took it for granted. All right. Meanwhile, airspace is now restricted over Joe Biden's house because they believe he is now going to be the president of the United States.
Hey.
Donald Trump is absolutely distressed, and he's crying tears in the White House, but he is not going to give up so fast. But what I will say this, okay, I am very, very, very happy and proud of America in this one respect, because I was extraordinarily concerned that everybody was going to say voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud. But I would say, for the most part, a huge majority of Americans believe that this election was done fairly, even though Donald Trump is screaming otherwise.
It definitely was. There was like not any kind of news that we heard from anybody, like how Trump was like with the last election where he was talking about Hillary, and all them cheating and stuff, like, and we found out like Florida, there was just like, there was no type of mess that was happening except for what was coming out of Trump's mouth.
Yeah, because every elected official statewide who's in charge of conducting each individual state has made it very, very clear. The governors, the secretaries of state have made it very clear and transparent that it is a very, very fair election. And for that, America should be proud.
There you go. I'm proud. I am finally something good in 2020.
Yeah.
Shit. Excuse me. Damn. It's just like, God.
Yeah,
I was
what?
like, you know, right. You know, like.
It's almost like he had the whole year flashback, and he's like, I think I'm going to have a win.
Because legit, the first thing that came to my mind before the election, like right before the election, I was like, damn, this is the season finale of 2020, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. Because this whole show has been show. It's horrible.
The whole series, right? It's like a show on Netflix that keeps you on the edge of your...
You know what? It's like one of those shows. It's like I think it's like one of those shows. It's like you're just watching like a total train wreck of a show. But you're like, I can't keep my eyes off this train wreck, and I got to come back and look at it again, right?
Yes,
oh, that's almost like, you know what I thought of the other day, Brad? I forgot to mention it to you. I watched that Adam Sandler Uncut movie. That's how 2020 made me feel. You kept watching it and hoping the movie was gonna get better, and it was.
Is that the one when he's the jeweler? That's the one when he's the jeweler? Yeah,
yes.
Uncut Gems. Yeah, that was horrible. It was like peeling his skin off.
That was horrible.
And by the way, you know,
and
by the way, spoiler alert: the end was horrible. It made me feel terrible. The end of that movie was terrible. It's just like I was tortured for 2 hours, and then to watch that end.
I was watching it on the way back from Houston, and that's what I had to tell you.
Yeah, it was awful, and it could have been so good too.
Because I love Adam.
I do too. But he's got to stay in his lane, just like everybody else. You know, stay in your lane and do some stupid movies and make us laugh, right?
Exactly.
All right, it's Friday, by the way. We're getting right into Friday. A couple of kayakers, they are lucky to be alive after a humpback whale very nearly swallowed them, and it was caught on video. Julie McSorley and Liz Cottriel were kayaking and whale watching Monday off of California's Avila Beach in San Luis Obispo, when out of nowhere, the massive whale came up out of the surface to gobble a big pool of fish, and they were right there. At first, it appeared the whale swallowed the women, but their kayak only capsized and they were underwater. Cottriel said, it was the weirdest thought. I'm thinking, I'm dead. I thought I was going to land. The whale was going to land on top of me. Next thing I know, I'm underwater. You know,
oh my gosh.
Usually I'm scared of sharks. I'm not thinking whales are going to come and kill me.
Right. And obviously that was on,
that was too close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Uncle Brad stays by the pool. You know, the pool is a lot safer, right?
See, there are certain parts of this world that humans just should not be, you know, messing with. Like,
you just leave it to the animals. Like that's their home.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them do their thing.
Right. It's like, you know, right. You wouldn't be out in the water where the whales and sharks are, and you wouldn't be walking around the savannah to get eaten by a lion either, right?
There you go. There you go. Stay where you belong.
There's just some things you don't do.
You know what? Jill just whispered in my ear. She goes, here's a good one. Every time you enter the water, you are entering a food chain. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, and I'm not trying to be a part of that chain.
By the way, talking about that, I texted Jill yesterday. This is not on my card, so I apologize, Jill. But this is I really found this ironic, too. You know the war on drugs, right? Mm-hmm. You know who won the war on drugs?
Who?
Drugs. It was just legalized all over.
There you go.
You know?
Yes.
And I mean, it ended up 2020, just, you know, drugs winning the war on drugs. I mean, that's how...
Was that Oregon? That was Oregon, right?
Oregon, right. Mushrooms and ecstasy is legal. It's now, you know...
What? Wasn't heroin... Didn't they legalize heroin there?
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's going to be a lot of trips to Oregon.
Yeah. You're like, you know that war on drugs? You know who won it? Drugs.
Drugs. That is so true. That is
in
so
2020.
True.
In 2020. I mean, that's how 2020 ends. I mean, that's how bizarre 2020 is, right?
Drugs win.
Drugs win.
We know Pablo didn't win it, but 2020 did.
Drugs wins the war on drugs. Drugs won. World nothing.
Damn.
Oh, this is good because I'm a tequila drinker. I didn't know this. You know I drink tequila, right?
Read it to me, Brad.
Yes.
You know I drink tequila, right? Elon Musk Okay, you know who he is, the owner of Tesla, billionaire owner of Tesla. He has gotten people to buy flamethrowers, short shorts, surfboards, and now he's throwing in tequila. Musk's electric automaker Tesla launched its own line of Tesla Tequila yesterday.
Tesla Tequila, wow. I felt it coming.
Yeah, making good on the CEO's promise for the company to start selling its own brand of alcohol. It retails $250 a bottle. It comes in lightning shape. You want to buy me a Christmas gift?
This would be it?
This would be it.
Happy Yo-Yo.
I hope it's good.
$250. If everybody on the crew wants to, hint, if everybody on the crew wants to chip in and buy Uncle Brad a Christmas gift, I would like that. I'd like to taste this.
We got you.
All right. It retails for $250 on Tesla's website. It comes in a lightning-shaped bottle and is produced by Nosotros Tequila out of Southern California. Wow.
It looks like a cologne bottle.
That looks like a cool bottle of tequila. Can we see that bottle again?
He actually did a really good job with that. Yeah. I was going to say Tesla and tequila, but then when it was like Tesla Tequila, like
that looked
branding wise, they killed this. They did great with this.
That looks like a winner.
Buy that.
I want that. That looks like a winner.
It's better than those little red shorts that they came out with though. Like they came out with some like little red shorts for like $60-something, like $70. I was like, what?
Yeah, and you know what? That's better than the first version of that car. That bottle
should come with the car.
By the way, the cost of the shorts, number 7, each pair priced at $69.42. Yeah. Because the joke is $69 refers. This is a hump day, but $69 refers to what? Ha ha ha, the sex position. And $4.20, 42 cents refers to April 20th.
Is that why they did that?
Cannabis Day, yes. That's why they sell the shorts for $69.
Oh my gosh.
And 69.420. That's exactly how it's put on their website. You don't think Elon Musk walks around in those shorts, smokes weed, and drinks his tequila?
Nah.
You think he does?
And then gets in his Tesla.
Jill says he absolutely does walk around in his shorts, drinks his tequila, gets in his Tesla, and smokes weed. Jill's whispering in my ear, goes, absolutely does it. He's a nut.
I agree.
Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.